I just wanted to touch on as well a bit of what you mentioned earlier about the efforts at normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel, also brokered by the United States via the Abraham Accords. How much in tandem with basically Netanyahu's green light for settlements and pogroms in Palestinian towns and villages, how much did that contribute to the sense of desperation that would empower a group like Hamas to commit these, obviously horrific acts of violence that you have condemned?
Yeah, so Netanyahu is very captivated with this idea of economic peace for many, many years now. That was the main idea behind the Abraham Accords. And now it's not purely economic, it's also strategic incentives concerning the relationship with Saudi Arabia. But first it must be said that the Arab public opinion throughout the Middle East is in a very different place than its leaderships that are going along with those initiatives of Netanyahu for their own reasons. And in a way, those leaderships collaborating with Netanyahu's attempt, and it's not just Netanyahu, with the Israeli attempt, basically, to just put the Palestinians in a box, lock them away, and throw away the key, because we are paying less and less of a price for maintaining the long-lasting occupation and apartheid over the Palestinians. And I have no doubt that it played a factor in that horrible attack, driving Palestinians, and specifically Hamas, to shout out in a horrible manner what the world and Israel were not willing to hear when they said it with their words. We didn't need that horrifying reminder to know that the Palestinian case cannot be forgotten through those bypassing alliances with other Arab countries. The Palestinians deserve justice. They will continue to resist and fight for justice and for their freedom. But it's incredibly heartbreaking to see that very justified resistance taking such a criminal, unhuman, violent turn.
Yes, and yet, as you say, it is predictable in the sense of the feelings of desperation among Palestinians. Just to give our viewers a bit of a sense of what Hamas is and their relationship, what Hamas's relationship is to the over 2 million Palestinians, many of whom have zero ability to express their voice in ways that are democratic, or in ways that will have, an effect that they can tangibly see to alleviate their immiseration. How does Hamas fit into that, and in terms of because there's a lot of condemnation of Hamas, obviously, in the wake of this, but just if you could give our viewers a rundown of what Hamas is.
Well, Hamas is a very big thing. I mean, it's not one thing. It is both a political party and leadership, which has also armed branches, several armed branches. So it's also a resistance group, and it's also an ultra-religious Muslim group, and it's a political group that is present in the Palestinian parliament. By the way, all of the Palestinian parties, not only Hamas, are considered illegal and are designated as terrorist groups by Israel. So we should also keep that in mind, that Israel constantly limits the way of unarmed Palestinian resistance to the occupation in many ways. So the rising of Hamas since 2006 also had to do a lot with the very corrupted mechanism and leadership of Fatah, and people were fed up with that corruption that basically brought them nowhere. Since the very establishment of Hamas, Israel has been playing a sort of a double game. That on the one hand, it condemns Hamas as a terrorist group and punishes the citizens of Gaza for electing them, but at the same time, and these, by the way, are quotes from right-wing ministers, for example, Bezalel Smotrich, that said, that was quoted saying a while ago, we do not have an interest in eliminating Hamas because Hamas actually has an important role in weakening the Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas, by Abu Mazen. So in that double game that Israel is playing, it actually made sure that Hamas doesn't go anywhere.
Yep.
And keeps, being a significant player just so it can be a counter power to Mahmoud Abbas's Palestinian Authority. So we see these days how well that turned out for Israel.
And I mean, it was very well said, and it also benefits their efforts to paint Palestinians as terrorists, and it also will justify the bombing of areas that are Hamas strongholds, essentially civilian infrastructure and apartment buildings and hospitals and schools, which Israel has done for decades at this point. I know we don't have you for a ton of time, so I just wanted to ask you a bit more, lastly, about what a ground invasion would really mean, because that is a threat that is looming right now, and the prospect of a ground invasion in Gaza, and how that actually would be as devastating as it sounds.
I am terrified by the idea of what is awaiting us in the days ahead of us. Ground invasion, I mean, not that, airstrikes are any less destructive or lethal, but ground invasion into Gaza would mean a whole different scenario. It's for some time now, after one of the last, I think it was after 2014, that basically everything, Gaza turned into a pile of ruins. And when they reconstructed Gaza, they made sure to build the buildings in a way that an Israeli tank can actually drive between them without tearing them down. But we are talking about the most densely populated place on earth. I heard somebody saying today, I heard Amy Goodman actually saying today that Gaza is more or less in the size of Detroit, just to give a sense to the American audience. And while in Detroit, the population is about 600,000 or so, in Gaza is 2.4 million people. So you can imagine what a a line of Israeli tanks driving basically on the constructions, flattening down what remained in Gaza after the Air Force bombings would mean, and what possibilities of rehabilitation, if any, would ever be possible again in Gaza.
Well, Orly Noy, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on. You can read Orly's work. I mean, I saw that you had a piece out in The Guardian today, but also at 972 Magazine over at Local Call. Also chair the executive board of B'Tselem. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.